Story 1. The Burrow. No one went into the hollow woods after sundown. That was the rule, as old as the town itself. People didn't speak of it openly, but everyone knew. Something lived there, something old, something watching. Ellen had never believed in those tales. Superstitions, she'd called them. Backwoods folklore. And she had no patience for that kind of thing. Until Easter Sunday, the day her son vanished. It was the annual egg hunt at the edge of the hollow. Kids raced through the sun-dappled grass, scooping up pastel eggs as laughter echoed through the trees. Parents chatted, sipped coffee, and swapped stories of their kids' antics. Ellen stood near the tree line watching Jacob, 6 years old, curious as a cat, wander a bit too far. He always had a way of slipping just out of reach. She turned to greet another parent, looked away for just a second. When she looked back, he was gone. "Jacob," she called casually at first, then louder. "Jacob!" No reply, just the soft rustling of leaves and a hush that fell over the forest like a held breath. Others joined the search. They spread through the clearing, calling his name. Eventually, someone found a patch of disturbed earth deeper in the woods, a hollow space beneath an old tree, like a warren, freshly unearthed. They said it looked natural, but Ellen saw the shape, round, precise, as if something had burrowed up from underneath. The search stretched into the night. No sign of him, no prints, no trail, nothing. It was like he had been plucked from the earth itself. They called off the hunt after a week. Ellen refused to stop. She wandered the woods at dusk, lantern in hand, whispering Jacob's name into the trees. The wind seemed to carry it further than her voice ever could. One night she found an egg. It sat in the crook of a tree, glossy and pale, not like the ones from the hunt. This was off-white, almost translucent, as if the shell had thinned with time. She picked it up and gasped. Inside the shell, beneath a veil of what looked like ash, was a photo of Jacob. Not one she'd ever taken. In it, he stood beside a hollow tree, smiling, but his eyes were fogged over, like someone had smudged the film. When she looked again, the egg was empty. That night, she heard footsteps in the hallway, small ones. She rose, heart hammering, and stepped into the corridor. Nothing. But her nose caught a scent she hadn't smelled in months, dirt and baby shampoo. Jacob's scent. And on the floor, a single marble, his favorite. The next few nights, it escalated. Toys moved, laughter echoed from corners. The scent of spring and soil filled the house. The air turned colder. Lights flickered. And the dreams began. She would find herself in a forest. Not quite the hollow, but similar. Dim, fog-choked. Jacob would be ahead of her, calling her name. She would run, arms outstretched, but the ground pulled at her feet. And just as she reached him, a shadow would rise behind him. Tall, long-eared, hollow-eyed. Then she'd wake. The town began whispering. They said the hollow had taken others before, one every 20 years. Always a child, always around Easter. A tithe, someone muttered when they thought she wasn't listening. A month later, she found the second egg. This one sat on her windowsill, covered in moss and cobwebs. Inside was a lock of Jacob's hair, braided, tied with a ribbon. She began to ask questions, old stories, legends. She found a woman, Madeline, 93 years old, who lived on the edge of town, surrounded by salt lines and bird bones. "You heard him, didn't you?" the woman asked without prompting. "The one who digs." Ellen hesitated. "The Burrow man," Madeline whispered, "used to be a spirit of the harvest, took the fallen, the buried. But people forgot, so now he takes the living." "Jacob's not dead," Ellen said, voice trembling. "Not quite," Madeline said, "but he's been touched, marked. He's not where you think he is." Madeline told her what to do. Ellen returned to the hollow on the next full moon. She brought an offering, a toy rabbit Jacob had loved, soaked in lavender and wrapped in a strip of his blanket. She buried it beneath the hollow tree. The air went still. Then came the whisper. So faint it could have been the wind, but it said her name, and it said Mama. The third egg appeared a week later. This time it was filled with soot and fingernail clippings, too small to be an adult's. Ellen screamed and smashed it. That night the dreams turned worse. Jacob appeared again, but his eyes were gone, and his mouth opened in a silent scream as the long-eared shadow loomed behind him, reaching. She knew then. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. His. Something had him. Something beneath the ground, not dead, but lost, trapped. She dug every night, in the garden, in the woods, under her floorboards, desperately trying to find the tunnel again. Neighbors thought she'd gone mad. On Easter Sunday, the following year, the scratching returned. Under her bed, under the stairs, under her skin. She felt it, something trying to pull her under. And then, stillness. The next morning, her front door creaked open. No one was seen entering or leaving. But when the mailman passed, he saw her front yard covered in eggs, hundreds of them, some glittering, some black, some cracked and oozing dark sap. Inside each one was something different. Child's teeth, clumps of hair, notes written in a child's hand. One read, "Help, I hear Mommy crying. I want to come home." Ellen was never seen again. But every Easter, people say they see a woman in the woods. She walks barefoot, her dress in tatters, calling a name that echoes between the trees. And sometimes, just sometimes, children hear laughter in the hollow tree, followed by soft digging sounds beneath their beds. Story 2. The Resurrection Choir. St. Agatha's stood like a gravestone at the edge of the countryside, built in 1831, abandoned by 1980. Most didn't even know it was there anymore. Trees had swallowed it. The iron gate had rusted shut. Only the wind seemed to pass through freely. But on Easter Sunday, the choir still sang. Lena hadn't meant to stop. Her car, a rental, broke down on her way to a spring festival. She had no signal, no idea where she was. The road had vanished behind a thick wall of mist. In the distance, through the fog, a bell tolled. She followed it. St. Agatha's rose out of the haze like something from a faded photograph. Stone steeples, stained glass shattered in places. The front door hung half open. Moss climbed the walls like ivy. She should have turned back, but she stepped inside. The scent hit her first. Candle wax, dust, and something sweet and sour like rotted lilies. Pews lined the nave, splintered and warped. The altar still stood, draped in a faded purple cloth. And then, music. A child's voice, then another. Lena froze. Somewhere deeper inside, voices were singing a hymn. Soft, melodic, off-key. The tune was familiar, an old Easter chant, but the words were wrong. Fragmented Latin, backwards. She followed it toward the vestry. The hallway was dark. Portraits lined the walls, their faces scratched out. Candles flickered, though she hadn't seen anyone light them. The singing grew louder, clearer. It was children, many of them. She opened a door. Inside, a dozen children stood in neat rows, eyes closed, mouths moving in unison. Their skin was grayish, faded, like they hadn't seen sunlight in decades. They swayed slightly as they sang, barefoot on the cold stone floor. A woman stood at the front, tall, dressed in a nun's habit stained with soot. Her back was to Lena, arms lifted like a conductor. Lena gasped. The singing stopped. The children turned in perfect unison, eyes clouded white, mouths stitched shut with thin threads. The nun turned too. Her mouth didn't move, but Lena heard the voice. "We're not finished." She ran, back through the corridor, tripping over debris, down the nave, toward the open door, but it wasn't open anymore. The stained glass above the altar flashed with light, and behind her the singing began again. She woke outside. It was still foggy, still dawn, but her car was parked at the edge of the woods, clean, undamaged, as if nothing had happened. She drove, didn't stop, didn't speak of it, not until the dream started. Every Easter, without fail, she would dream of the church, the children's voices, the hymn. She'd wake with that song stuck in her head, except now she understood the words. They were singing to raise something that had once died, but was never buried. She tried to find the church again, traced the road, scoured old maps. Nothing, no record of a St. Agatha's, not even in county records, until she received the letter. No return address, just her name, written in red ink. Inside a photo, grainy and sepia-toned, a choir of children lined up in front of an altar. One of them looked like her, exactly like her. On the back, in elegant script, "You sang beautifully." She moved to a new city, changed her name. But every year, a new envelope came, a new photo, a new message. "We're almost ready. You're not finished. One more song." Last year, she woke with a note tucked into her hand. Easter is the doorway. The song is the key. This year, she stopped sleeping altogether, but it didn't help. The night before Easter, she saw them. Children gathered outside her window, faces pale, lips sealed, humming softly. The nun stood behind them, smiling with her eyes, and Lena, trembling in her bed, began to hum along. No one has seen Lena since, but if you're out near the old back roads on Easter Sunday and the mist rolls in early, you might hear it. A ghostly choir, children's voices carried on the wind, and if you follow the sound, you may find a church that's not on any map. And if you go inside, don't sing, because the resurrection choir is still missing a voice. Story 3. Painted Shells. Mara had always painted eggs for Easter, not the plastic kind, not store-bought dye kits. Real eggshells, cleaned, dried, fragile. She painted with tiny brushes under lamplight. Using pigments, she ground herself from flowers, ash, and, though she never said aloud, something darker. People in town admired her work. Her Easter eggs were beautiful, miniature landscapes, portraits, dreams pressed onto curved white canvases. Every year she held an exhibition in her cottage where families would come, marvel, and leave with one wrapped in tissue paper and ribbon. But they never saw the other collection. Not the blood shells. Those were kept in a locked trunk in the attic, hidden beneath layers of old quilts and lavender sachets. Mara only painted them at night, and only during the week before Easter. She never sold them, never showed them, never dared speak about them to anyone. Each year she painted 12, one for each of the ones who came before. She didn't remember how the tradition started. It had been taught to her, not in words but in feeling. Her grandmother had done it. Her mother too. On the night before Easter, they would sit in silence, painting the final egg as the clock struck midnight. And the next morning, they would be safe. She didn't know from what, but she knew better than to stop. One year, she missed the deadline. It was a bad year. Her hands shook from illness. Her paints wouldn't bind. The 12th egg remained blank as the church bells rang 12 times. She sat, staring at the untouched shell, whispering apologies. Outside, the wind howled, and then came the knocking. Not on the door, not on the windows, from underneath the house. It went on for hours, rhythmic, hollow. In the morning, her neighbor's boy was found dead in the hedgerow, eyes wide, mouth open, fingers caked with dirt. No visible wounds, no known cause. Mara repainted the 12th egg that very night. She never missed again. Years passed. Her hands grew more skilled. The blood shells grew stranger. She painted scenes she didn't remember dreaming, bleeding trees, doorways in the sky, faces split by shadow. She always sealed the shells with a final touch, a red symbol at the base, a single crooked line, like a crack in reality. Then, one Easter, a man named Rowan moved into the village. He was an art collector, tall, soft-spoken, far too curious. He visited Mara's exhibition and became obsessed, bought every painted egg she offered, begged to see more, asked questions, too many questions. "I know there's more," he said one afternoon. "Your brushwork changes, some eggs feel different, like they're watching." Mara denied it, told him not to come back. That night, someone broke into her attic. She found the trunk open, one of the blood shells missing. On the floor, in a smear of red, someone had drawn her symbol. The next day, Rowan was gone. His home sat untouched. No signs of struggle, but neighbors reported seeing shadows moving inside long after he'd disappeared. His windows fogged from the inside, even in summer. And then Mara began hearing voices, whispers from her paint water, scratching in the walls. On Easter Eve, the house filled with the scent of burning feathers. The candles went out on their own. She found a new egg in the attic, not one she'd painted. It was black, shimmering with a dull, oily sheen. When she touched it, her nose bled. Inside was a sliver of bone. She buried it in the yard without a word. The blood shells changed after that. They grew more vivid, alive. One pulsed beneath her fingers. Another wept a clear, saltless liquid. She painted faster, more feverishly, unable to stop. And each time, the 12th egg took more from her. A memory, a dream, a piece of her reflection. Until one year, she saw herself on one of the shells, older than she'd ever been, her eyes sunken, mouth sewn shut. She finished it anyway. Now no one sees Mara during Holy Week. Her windows stay shuttered. Her mail piles up. Children dare each other to knock on her door. They say if you do, you'll hear the tapping, soft at first, then louder like claws against glass. And if you wait long enough, you'll find an egg on your doorstep by morning. Sometimes it's blank. Sometimes it bears a symbol you don't recognize. Sometimes it's already cracked open. And if it is, whatever was inside is already with you. In the spring after Mara's death, her cottage was cleared out by distant relatives. The upstairs trunk was found open, empty. The paintbrushes had been arranged in a perfect circle around the attic floor. And in the center sat one final egg, pure white, until someone touched it. Then the shell darkened, a face bloomed across its surface, smiling. Some eggs are never meant to be opened, but you'll know one when you see it. They're warmer than they should be, and if you hold them too long, you'll feel the heartbeat inside.